Good evening. My name is Ben. Higby. Cave Crusher returns. It's 22nd February 2022. And episode 5, part 5, is what I see is not only that big business and FBI manipulation of minorities for divide and conquer. I'm going to go back to the year 2018 during the previous administration, Agent Orange, and how that situation is linked today, what we have today. And we are going to connect the dots. We're going to go through the history and we're going to connect the dots today and why it is a massive problem. First off, we're going to go through this individual. Heard about Yavet Kyle, Breaking Brown, watched her videos, observed, and other actors like Tariq Nasheed and Antonio Brown, I think it's who is I forgot what it's called. He's Haitian. I'm trying to find his podcast, but I can't find it now. So I'm going to talk about that. She is a so-called activist who, she's supposedly on the left, end quote, quote, on the left, end quote, came from Bernie Sanders, after the 2016 elections, where, Sanders was cheated and people did not want Hillary Clinton, and minorities didn't want Hillary Clinton because of her past and with her with black people. So she talked about all his history about black people voting for one party, which is basically, illusion of two parties, which is nothing more than one corporate party. But, she talks about the DNC stuff. And she tends to pander to the right, and it's just like an echo chamber, I've noticed, with alternative channels, small channels, big channels, and the alternative media is very, it's very mosaic, tribal, with different voices in that, in with different communities, and you know, one of the growing ones are minorities having their own channels growing in this space. And, she talks about, you know, economic issues. She felt that, minorities are not getting treated well, and there's a whole past of that historic past. Um, and what is problematic is, we remember the divide and conquer, um, race relations with other groups, with between black and white, and what these people do. People like Tariq Nasheed, Antonio Brown, Yavek Khan now, um, you know, and those that done it in the past, um, you know, they have a rhetoric to sell to the people, and it's all about race hustling. And what they do to minorities is put them in a cycle of, you know, divide and conquer warfare. And it is like a psychological attack being made, which is not, it's not normal. And things like 4chan, that has been done in the past with 2018, like before 2018, like during the US election 2016, there was psyops like QAnon psyops, Pizzagate psyops, under the Trump admin, and this happened on the Trump admin using minorities, like every other party, this one corporate party, and selling, it's profitable selling race to people, race wars and cultures, race, which I see as just nothing more than race hustlers. This individual hasn't updated the website to 2020, 2021, forums, but I believe she's already back and continue doing videos and continue with this campaign. And there's a whole history of those who I don't live in the US, so I don't know fully much, but I know a lot of history between these historical two-party systems, which are now just one corporate parties, but historically two-party system America, historically, in short, historically for the Republican Party, African Americans backing because of the Party of the Lincoln that freed the slaves, and you know the revolution, the history of of the revolution, of the American history, which I'm not fully familiar with. I don't want to make assumptions, but just putting in short, the history behind these two parties, 1968 Democratic Party with the relations of JFK, um, you know, and things like that. Well, Wikipedia is not a reliable CIA Wikipedia, but it tells you what does this ADOS meaning. It means American descendants of slavery, um, who are pushing for demands in to the United States government for uh, legal reparations. And this is really, it really, it really has these elements of divide and conquer, um, identity politics, the their cult. I see a cult is just about um, victimization and you know it's just like a paintbrushing of others, and it's just like a cultural warfare going on, which is doesn't make like I'm trying to make sense of it, but there's like it's a psychological operation being done, and it's clearly there's intelligence backing, there's big business backing, there's big money behind it, and what's worse, I have told BB about this months back last year, is that not only there's divide and conquer with, other races, there's now divide and conquer within race with the minorities. And such as, for example, these what's going on with African Americans, where there's massive, you know, battle between the two, basically creating ethnic wars, ethnic tensions within the political space, and it reminds me of like uh, Israeli ethnic supremacy rhetoric type of rhetoric. Um, they claim to be non-partisan, but they pander right, they pander to the Democrats, DNC. There's just this one corporate party psyop using race for political year, and it was obvious what they were doing, what was taking place in 2018 in the which happens to be a election for midterm elections, and this was right after the inauguration of the previous administration. This was a tactic for 2020 as well, selections. So, people called her out for being xenophobic. Against African immigrants. She defended terms such as blood and soil used, slogans used by Nazis. And, yeah, there is a, a growing cause of anti-immigration in that group. But they don't talk about things in the discourse that gets people thinking. Where I sit back and listen and understand the immigration points of view, where they're coming from, but they have no clue, they have no idea about, things, real issues that they are not talking about, where they spend their time between culture wars, specifically focusing on what these immigrants do in the country in terms of they believe in politically, socially, which is a diversion, and they don't talk about real issues that affects them, that suppresses wages, that increases profits for massive multinationals serving big business interests. And those that do these tactics, these diversion tactics, are just feed to what establishment want in, not just divide and conquer, and not addressing real issues of, you know, open borders, immigration, like weaponized immigration, um, the big business and this. If it's not in your discourse, then you're just grifting and pandering and trying to make a massive buck. And that's why these people, I call them race hustlers, and race hustlers is massive and is profitable in America, especially in America, as America has always had this racial issues. Um, but they use those tactics to blame ordinary people, divide communities, divide people up, and don't target the real enemies, but just target ordinary people at pointing fingers at each other, but don't point fingers at the people at the top. And I'm going to really break that down and address these things. We have other segments of the group, which is funny because is in politically, um, especially during that pathetic 2016 selection in the year of populism, where people are just fed up with the system and looking for an alternative, but they just use they use their protest vote to shake up, challenge the status quo of a ordinary, quote unquote, quote, stable, end quote, democracy, which the establishment have been using this tool to ensure that big business runs smoothly, as long the status quo is not shifted, not shaken, and and that is the height. And you have political actors. They use these things like to grab the vote, just like I talked about. What these ticks are to grab black people's vote, and this one is to grab Native Americans' vote. These fraudulent tools in these fraudulent democracies in the West using identity politics, these dirty corporate tactics to, exploit indigenous, just like they exploit minorities, black people, Asian people, and it's been done effectively and effectively to manipulate minorities and indigenous people. You see, they see Elizabeth Warren. They took the whole Cherokee Nation, locked up on this reservation. Though I wear a shirt and tie, I'm still part red man deep inside. Elizabeth Warren, the fraud, the indigenous fraud, and this is what the establishment loves doing. And you see that with Canadian Elizabeth Warren, which which is Carrie Barusa, who is a medical researcher with the University of Toronto, who became known as a top voice of Indigenous health issues. So these are the tactics they've been using, and my favorite one is Rachel Dolezal, that sparked like lots of mainstream media, and that's exactly what they want. This is exactly what they want: the shock and awe and the attention, distractions, and this is the type of distractions they're using against ordinary people to get people riled up and not focus on the real issues. We have another fraudulent actor, Dane Calloway, who is apparently, American educator or film editor, whatever, blah blah blah. Well, the whole historian who is telling his slogan with his slogan to minorities, black people, "I'm just here to make you think," by doing revisionist history on Native American um, history, claiming that black people actually come from Native American and real indigenous Native Americans are just imposters, and they disown African American history, African history, and African heritage, and to the point of saying the slave trade didn't exist. They're saying like it's a fairy tale. Dane Calloway saying that crap. Imagine, imagine someone with a Jewish background saying that about the Holocaust. This is very disgusting. This is the type they are pushing to, brainwash and manipulate minorities, confuse them, and distract them with such crap information that just, you know, feeding off the gullibility of some people. And, it's been bunked. It's been bunked, many times through, you know, DNA stuff. Um, it's just a lot of history of minorities, black people gone through, and they use the traumatic history, they use the tensions to gain profit, they use a lot of divisive language and tactics and division to to get what they get, to get what they want, and you know, to make money out of struggling, economically struggling minorities. And if history has shown, because in history in school I was taught, Black History Month. That was the in the schools, and slave trade, the civil rights movement, and MLK in the UK. Um, you know, people, real people fought for things like that, things like the civil rights movement, um, you know, police brutality. These things are, happened, and this is the history that, the legacy that happens in America, you know, and I have talked about all these tactics used today, and never forget the history of what's going on. So I'm gonna show pictures of the civil rights movement. I don't want to drag too much, but people just are being used to be manipulated, just whitewash history, erasing history, and it links to a lot of things that such movements are like what's been done in the past. Contel um, you know, and it's still happening. It never ended. It never ended. They say it ended in the 70s, but it's still here. And you have actors like these spreading divisive language. I've heard worse that you know calling for an genocide or extinction of white people. So there's a lot of issues historically that you know historical systemic you know racism in the past, and still issues around there, but the divisiveness, the tactics like these, when you're getting paid big money as a DHS employee, and you're spreading around, racialist nonsense and drivel on about, white people and Jewish people. This is the type of rhetoric they are feeding off. And this is the type of things they like doing to deflect from real issues. The critical key component of the issues today, it lands on the immigration problem that comes from big business and cheap labor. Unions e-verify. So things like these issues that is still happening today, not just in the US, everywhere across the Western world. And how does it link to the immigration issue? How does it link to Bernie Sanders? Originally, his original campaign opposed immigration. His original, which I've learned, he he in 2007 he opposed the key comprehensive immigration bill, which allows big business to open up um, cheap labor to unauthorized immigrants, place them in the US to work in worse living, worse working conditions, and they have no path to citizenship, no life, basically, and their wages are suppressed, and with that, national born in the country document, have everything, every record, you know, just naturally born in the US. Those nationals, they have no benefits alongside with the undocumented immigrants, where they're all suppress, um, you know, wages, and as a result, big business increases their profits. And Sanders was one of those who opposed the big business comprehension immigration reform bill that is used for open borders, which big business wants. But since then, like post what during or after during or after 2016, I think it's after that, post 2016, he supports you know this immigration reform with big money interests backing him, just like every other politician and candidate. They flip in entering the Congress, Senate, and the Oval Office. They flip to support big business interests, and that's that's the nature of politics today. Not just in the US, it happens in UK. It happens in UK. Yeah, it happens in UK with um, Jeremy Corbyn, who was once, for Brexit, which people wanted, populism, which was Bernie Sanders, which immigration was a key issue that grabbed the left, that grabbed everybody, the evangelicals, the right, that supported Bernie Sanders. Uh, similar with Jeremy Corbyn. He grabbed the left. He managed to capture people who were not on the left, and that was the the things they suppressed and damaged, smearing their names and getting them out, and that's what they did with both Bernie Sanders and Jeremy Corbyn. But however, they flip, and Jeremy Corbyn, yeah, he did flip like Bernie Sanders did with the immigration policy. And yes, Bernie Sanders' history on wars is shows, who he really is behind. And it's the same with Jeremy Corbyn. Jeremy Corbyn put the front that he's the left, just like Bernie Sanders, and they put off the front. In reality, they have this big business interests uh, on when it comes to for Bernie Sanders, as I see it, the military industrial complex, the voting on supporting wars, um, and Jeremy Corbyn, in short, supporting climate psyops.